Hello pretty peoples, Kawajapa no Kyodori desu. Today we're going to talk about noni and nanoni, which is often used as a sentence ender as well as a conjunction. Last week we talked about the group of sentence enders no desu, nano desu, no da, nano da, etc. And when you're beginning, it can feel as if there are lots of different enders, no da, no desu, nanoni, noni, and they all sound somewhat similar and very confusing. But as I showed you with the 8 sentence enders we considered last week, those are all very self-explanatory, they're all just variants on each other, and terribly easy to understand once you know what's happening. Noni and nanoni are the same, you just really need to know what's going on, and then it's all very clear. But the first thing to understand is that noni and nanoni are not related to the ones we considered last week, no desu, nano desu, and that's because they don't end in da or des, and so the grammatical structure is actually quite different. Right, so what is noni? Let's just start with that. What is noni? What it is a conjunction, and a conjunction is something that joins two clauses, each of which could be a complete sentence in itself, joins two of them together to make one compound sentence, such as I went to the shops and bought some bread. Each of those is a complete sentence in itself, and the and joins them together into a complex sentence, doesn't it? Now, what noni is what's called a gyakusetsu, and that's an opposing conjunction. The main gyakusetsu in English is but. I went to the shops, but there was no bread. We use but when the second clause of the two somehow contradicts or stands in opposition to the first. The gyakusetsu that you probably know already is kedo, or perhaps the more formal ga. And the ga, which is a gyakusetsu, is the only other ga in Japanese, apart from the all-important ga particle. And they work very differently, so they're not confusable. So, omise ni itta ga pan ga nakatta. I went to the shops, but there was no bread. Noni is a little different from those because it tends to imply, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it very much tends to imply that the second of the two clauses is unsatisfactory and very often personally disappointing to the speaker. Pan ga oishii no ni okyakusan ga konai. Even though the bread is delicious, the customers don't come. So, how does this conjunction become a sentence ender? The answer to that is that, strictly, grammatically speaking, it doesn't. But you're going to see it ending a lot of sentences, casual sentences, that is. So, what's going on here? Well, as we see, a conjunction needs to join two complete sentences. So before you have a conjunction, you've got to have a complete sentence. You then add the conjunction to join it to something else. But sometimes in Japanese, that something else, that second part, never comes. And to understand that, you have to understand that Japanese people are very fond of trailing statements, statements that leave the conclusion unstated. And this is why you'll often find in casual speech, or in manga, anime, novels, in casual speech, you'll often see sentences that end with a te form. Now, grammatically, you can't end a sentence with the te form. It's a conjunctive form. It implies that something else is coming, but it's often done. Let's take an example. Akachan ga urusakute. What does that mean? Well, the actual sentence is Akachan ga urusai or urusakatta. The baby is or was noisy. But then we're ending it with conjunctive te form. The baby is or was noisy, and we don't know whether it is or was, because the tense marker would have come at the end of the complete sentence, which hasn't been completed. So what does it mean? What it means depends on the context, and the listener will know the context. So it might mean the baby was noisy, and so I couldn't sleep. Or it might mean the baby was noisy, and it was embarrassing in front of all those people. But this kind of unfinished trailing statement is very, very common. So let's look at a noni statement. We might be, say, at some venue, waiting for Sakura to arrive, and someone might remark, Sakura ga yakusoku shita no ni, and that means even though Sakura promised. The sentence is obviously simply Sakura promised. But what she's in fact saying is, even though Sakura promised to come, she hasn't. and that noni implies the rest of the sentence. Alright, so what about nanoni? Why do sentences end in nanoni? The reason for that is that when we use no, we have to use the conjunctive form of the da or des. So when that first complete sentence, the one that takes the conjunction, ends in da, we have to change it to na in order to put a no after it. So, take an example. Harata nichiyobi nano ni. And what does that mean? Well, the basic sentence is simply harata nichiyobi da. And that means 0 ga harata nichiyobi da. It is a sunny Sunday. Literally, it is a day that became and still is sunny. It today is a sunny Sunday. Now, if we want no ni on the end, we have to turn that da into a na. So, harata nichiyobi na no ni. And when will we say that? Well, suppose we are sick in bed and it's a beautiful Sunday. And you say, harata nichiyobi na no ni. What you're in fact saying is, it's a sunny Sunday, but unfortunately. But that doesn't amount to much in English, does it? What you're really saying is something like, it's a beautiful sunny Sunday, and I could have gone out for a lovely picnic, but I can't because I'm here in bed. Now that's an awful lot that's been left out, isn't it? And that's why people say things like, well, Japanese people don't say all that they're thinking. And of course they don't, but it's also why Japanese is such an economical language. Harata nichiyobi nano ni means all of that, as long as you know the context. And if you're talking to somebody who's sitting in the room with you, they do know the context. All you need is harata nichiyobi nano ni to say that whole thing. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday and I could have gone for a picnic, but I can't because I'm here in bed. Please remember that the course book for this course of lessons is Unlocking Japanese. You can get it at Amazon in paperback or Kindle editions. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below and I will answer. Thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.